So we're going to be practicing using some of the functions that come with SQL Server. And our first scenario is our boss wants us to display the vendor name, a contact name consisting of the last name, a comma, the first initial, and a period. And they want the phone number displayed without the area code. So we're going to have to use some of the string functions to format our output the way the boss wants it to look. So I've already entered a comment for task 1. We are going to be using the AP database on this. And vendor name we can display as is. And the last name is fine. So we're going to just display a vendor contact last name. And we're concatenating a comma and a space. And we're also concatenating basically the first initial of the first name. And to get that first initial, we're using the left function, which basically goes into a string from the left-hand side. And then we're telling it to grab the first character. So it's going to start on the left of vendor contact first name, grab the first character. That is going to give us the first initial. We're concatenating that with a period and a space. And we're saving all of this as contact name. Then for the phone number, we need everything except for the area code. So we need to come in from the right-hand side, and we're going to grab 8 characters. So the 4 digits, if we're looking from the right, we're grabbing 4 digits, a dash, and 3 digits. So we are going to grab 8 characters from the right-hand side of vendor phone. Now, vendor phone could be padded with spaces. So what we're doing is we're trimming vendor phone, and we're using our trim to get rid of any spaces on the right. And if we don't do that, the 8 characters that we grab could very well be spaces. So we're using our trim, vendor phone, gets rid of all of the spaces on the right-hand side. And then you'll notice that that is inside right. So it's going to take the result of this, which is basically going to be vendor phone with no spaces on the right. And then we're going to grab 8 characters from the right, which are going to be the 4 digits, the dash, and the 3 digits that we want. And we are going to label that column phone. This is all coming from our vendors table. And we only want to display area code 559. So we're going to use yet another text function, substring. And this time we are going to substrict into vendor phone, starting at position 2 and going for 3 characters. Now, the reason we're starting at position 2 is because area code actually starts with the left parenthesis. And we don't want to grab the left parenthesis, we want to grab the first number. So we're going to start at position 2 and grab position 2, 3, and 4, which are numbers. And we're going to make sure they are 559. And if they are, we display them. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And all of the phone numbers that we're seeing for these various vendors would have the 559 area code. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to call it Chapter 9, Textbook Assignment. I'm going to choose my location here. And then I'm going to move my closing comment down. And we're still working with our text functions or string functions. And our next scenario is data has been entered incorrectly into the string sample table in the example database. So instead of placing first and last name into separate columns, they were added to a single column. And our boss would like us to run a select statement that will display the first and last name in separate columns. So there is a function that will take care of this problem, and it's character index. That will help us locate characters that separate the components, and we can use left, right, substring, and length to extract individual components that we need. So we're going to go ahead and just run a little select so that we can see what it looks like now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run this so we can take a look at the data that we're dealing with. And then I'm going to key in the string functions and commands that we're going to use to display the first and last name in separate columns. And I'm going to pause while I do that, and then I'll come back and explain what it does. So here's the command we're going to use. And if you remember, left looks at the column and then goes from the left a certain number of characters. Now to figure out how many characters it needs to go, we're going to look for the first space. But we don't really want it to include the space when it's going from the left. So we're going to look for the location of the space, and then we're going to subtract 1, which is the number of characters it needs to go from the left. So that is what character index is doing. It is looking for a space, the first space in name. Okay, and that's going to give us this location. And then it's subtracting 1, which is going to give it the value of the number of characters in that name. Okay, and that is how many characters in they're going to go to get the name. And they'll do the same thing with Darnell and Lance and Jean, exact same process. Okay, so that column has an alias of first. Then, to get the last name, we are going to do a little arithmetic here with some of our string functions. We need to know the length of the full name. So how long is this? Then we need to know how long the first name is, including the space. Okay, so it's going to take a look at the beginning of name, looking for that first space. So if we know the full length and we know how long this first portion is, we can subtract out the first portion, and that's just going to give us the length of the last name. And then we're going to go from the right and grab last name. And it will work with all of them. So for O'Sullivan, it's going to give us the total length. We're going to subtract out the length of the first name and the space. So what's remaining is the length of the last name. We go in from the right and grab that number of characters. The column that it's displayed in is giving an alias of last. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run this. Okay, and you can see we've got the original, we've got the first and the last name. And I'm going to go ahead and move my closing comment down. and save my changes. And I am moving on to task 2, which deals with numeric functions.